Good. All right, it is 6:30, so I am going to call the meeting to order. So, Monique,
Okay, President Bella.
Here.
Vice President Zuka.
Here.
Director Schmidt.
Here.
Director Jordan. Here. And Director Leo.
Here.
We have a quorum.
okay, Stan, and since Monique is sitting on the other side, facing the flag, she will lead us to pledge allegiance. Please.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excellent. Very good. Public comments.
We've received no request for public comments.
No request.
No.
Good. All right. So now we go to agenda review. The additions or deletions from consent items. Anybody? Anything? Yes.
Let's add a brief, potential tweak of the one resolution. I think we can do it under consent.
Okay. All right, cool. Very good. We'll move on to we'll go to the consent agenda. We have the approval of the minutes from the meeting of May 25th. Expenditures for the month of May. The approval of resolution 2023-14. So Director Schmidt.
Thanks for, on page 14, the resolution heading. It refers to the contract amount of 87,500. And then the language in the whereas and the now therefore be resolved says not to exceed 90,000. And I think you can infer what's going on there, but I thought it might be clear to put in the heading to change it from in the amount of $20,000, comma, for a total amount each fiscal year of 87,500, to change that for an anticipated total amount each fiscal year of 87,500. Talk to staff about that. Staff didn't feel it was necessary, but they didn't see a problem with the change. So I thought it was just a little bit clearer.
This is for obviously the profit, right?
Yeah.
Profits. All right, staff, anything? All good?
Yeah, we communicated, Brian brought that up, and I said, that's okay with us, but we word it this way, and I mentioned it too, that the staff report was basically the same staff report and resolution that you saw a couple of years ago, when Tammy brought this to the board, so, but it's fine, it will make the changes fine with staff.
All right, very good. Yeah, this is obviously a very important resolution or contract. And I don't think any business can operate without these types of professional services these days. Although I would tell staff to just regardless of how well we're doing with the John Davidson, that we always like to compare once in a while. It's always good to go out there and see what's available.
There's a real good potential, because he's told us that he wants to transition and do something different, so we may be looking for somebody different in the next few years. Yeah, but in the meantime, yeah, I think he's served the district very well.
Very well for us, and we really, please do tell him that we appreciate it.
Well,
Very good. Okay, right. All right, anything else?
I just had a question. Am I okay to approve all of consent even though I wasn't here for the May meeting with the minutes?
Different directors have different opinions on that. Some feel comfortable voting, even though they weren't here, and they trust that the minutes reflect what happened, and other directors feel like they shouldn't vote. So legally you could, but if you're not comfortable, you could abstain from that item on the consent calendar.
We're all right.
I trust you guys.
Oh, wow, that's a smart.
What's in her water?
Hopefully you haven't spoken to this one. All right, Very good. So, Brian, would you like to offer a motion?
Yes, please. I move the consent items. All consent items A, B, and C, including resolution 2023-14.
And I'll second.
Excellent. Okay, so we have a motion by Director Smith, and a second by Vice President Russo.
Just to clarify, 2023-14 as.
Yes. Thanks. Okay, all those in. We have a resolution, but we don't have to have a voice vote, right?
So this is another,
we have a resolution.
you all in this agency like to do a roll call vote when you approve resolutions. Legally, you're not required to, but you've always done it that way. So I'm going to support you to continue to do it that way. It seems to be your preference.
Yes, it is. It has been and it is. So, Money, please, roll call.
Director Schmidt,
Yes.
Director Zucca,
Yes.
Director Gordon,
Yes.
Director Leo,
Yes.
and President Bella.
Yes. Good. We're all done.
Okay. Didn't even notice.
Hearing and appeals, none. Item 7, Mid-Peninsula fiscal year 2016-21, CIP, COP.
Yeah, so I'm talking with Juben and Kat, and Juben wanted to take the lead and step into this project, so I'm gonna let Juben brief the board on this.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if I wanted, but I'll take it.
Oh, okay.
But we're finally here, 4.5 years in the making. Old County Road is one of the most challenging projects that we're gonna be facing. And we're at a point now where before you are 4 actions for this project, and all of them are related. So I'll go through them one by one. And you've heard me describe this project as challenging, but not complicated. And so that's a distinction, because we're putting a straight piece of pipe down Old County Road, right? There's not a mystery as far as what we're doing. It's challenging in that there is a lot of stuff on Old County Road, and there's a lot of businesses and a lot of old pipe and a lot of old utilities and current utilities. And so I think our designer, and through our reviews,
When you
we
say
did
old, meaning abandoned?
abandoned. Thank you. And well, there's old and abandoned.
Old,
And
abandoned,
abandoned.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
that's a very good distinction. Thank you. And I believe our designer has done a very good job of doing their best to locate these facilities, both existing and abandoned. And it took a while to put it all together. We've gone through multiple rounds of review in-house with this project, and went out to bid, described the bid process. It was about a 3-month process. We extended the bid by a month. If you recall, last month, I reported that out. There were some good questions from contractors that came in. Ultimately, out of the 7, there were 9 bidders that came to the pre-bid. There were 7 bidders that, there was 9 bidders that purchased plans, 7 bidders that came to the pre-bid, making them eligible to bid the job. A lot of them dropped out, as I reported out last month, due to a variety of reasons, most of them being that they're just too busy at this point to take on this project. Ultimately, we ended up with 3 bidders, which is a good number. The 2 lowest bids came in really tight, less than 5%, which is something we want to look at. Make sure that the low bidder isn't just throwing a number on the wall to get the job. And the low bidder ended up being someone that we've worked with and are currently working with. They're the contractor that's working on Harbor Boulevard. They've completed another project for the district, the last capital project for the district. They've completed 2 jobs for Parisima Hills Water District down the road, and very good to work with. And we have a good connection. So the bids came in February. That's great. The numbers came in good. That's great. The contractor is good. That's great. We don't know how well it's going to go until we start digging, but this is the first step. So before you is a recommendation to award the project to C2R Construction at $4.4 million, or $4,417,300. That's the low bid. There's other support support contracts and a single task order for us, but why don't I pause here and see if I can answer any questions regarding the construction, and then I'll dive into the other items in a minute. Hearing,
I have a question. When the contractors came and they started asking questions, they must have asked, or they must have put some kind of a contingency for unknown conditions when they start digging.
typically they do and they don't, and typically it's not that much. And the reason is that if it's an unforeseen, unknown condition, then they would be asking for change orders. So they do put some allowance in there, but not much, because they're bidding what's on the plans. Because it has to be the same even surface for everybody to bid, right? So all the bidders are bidding what's on the set of plans. And we do our best to put on the plans what we think is actually out there. And if they are digging and they run into a gas line, well, gas line is not a good example. Let's use a sewer line. That's
That was
not
not on the plans.
not on the plans, not marked. Then the contractor is due a change order because they bid it as far as what was on the plans. So that's why we're asking for a contingency for this project, and I'm describing it as challenging because we did our best, but there's a lot of unknowns out there.
And that, the reason I asked is because we've been saying for many years that it's like, it's a mystery what's underground, so it will always have to be a miracle if the plans would reflect close to what's in the ground. There's probably gonna be a lot of surprises.
We actually gave the engineer some more money for more potholing just to find out was there. That's what I remember as well, you know, because they were poking around and they're finding things, and they said, there's some more out here. Can we have a little bit more money to find out if there's even that much more? And I remember when they started doing the construction work for the apartments that are going to just walk down the road, the contractor was going to be putting in a water line for us and giving it over to us. And they started doing their work. They were working near the gutter pan just right out here on Old County Road. And there was a 36-inch water main that was abandoned by the SFPUC. And it wasn't even on the SFPUC plans, but some of the people there have been there long enough, they remember to be in there, so that's the kind of stuff that, has kind of gotten the back of the nape of the engineer's hair standing up, there's a bunch of stuff out there.
Yeah.
And we tried our best, as you've been said, and we'll see what happens. Didn't we also talk about and have to reroute the path of the water line a couple of places? Because we found out some more?
That's already incorporated into the plans,
In the
and
plan,
we also did ground penetrating radar in certain locations. We did additional potholing, and really you can't ask a contractor to bid something that's unknown. And you can't ask the contractor to say, cover all the contingencies. There's case law, and Julie can probably attest to that. That comes into play a lot with contaminated soils and stuff, where it just says, okay, contractor, you're responsible for everything. And you can't shift the responsibility. So they're basing their bids on what we provide them with the plans, and we've tried to do our best to put everything on the plans. Later on, we have a summary of all the projects we've had over the last 15 years. And you could see through that summary that for the most part, we've done a pretty good job as a district with change orders and those kind of things. But as my financial advisor says, past performance is no indication of future. So in this case, I'm anticipating we are going to have more change orders. But I think that bids were favorable. There's a few things that are really in our favor. One is that we know the contractor, they're used to working with us. We're used to working with them. We've negotiated over the past 6 years, multiple change orders on previous projects, and they're fair and they understand we're fair. So going into this project, I'm very comfortable that at least we have a good team in place where before you is a really good, before you is a construction management firm that we're proposing to use on this project that is really going to represent the district well on a complicated project like this, because in-house staff, ourselves included, along with staff, just don't have the expertise for a project of this size. So that's why we're proposing a construction management.
The one thing that, I hope it will not see is any change order based on the terrain, remember when we were doing, what was it, Hastings? They encountered some really hard material that. This
Rock.
area, I don't think they're gonna.
Well, funny you mentioned that. Funny you mentioned that.
Did I just-
Thanks a lot, Louis.
Yeah, funny you mentioned that because I'll give an update on Harbor Boulevard, where I would have never imagined running into rock
Oh, really?
right here. Down in the flatland and we ran into rock. So I would 100% agree with you intuitively in all the potholing. So we base all of our information on. For subsurface, potholing is basically they dig down in certain areas to find utilities, right? So it's kind of scattered throughout the project. We didn't run into any rock on Harbor, Old County Road. And then 400 feet into Harbor. We'll get into that later. How about that? But let's talk about this. I know Director Schmidt had a question also.
All right.
Yeah.
Enough damage, go ahead, please.
Oh, sorry. Two questions. One is, this is the second or third time I've seen it where we've handled a project by putting a pipe through a bigger pipe. And my question is, how are we able to get away with that? Do we have higher pressure or the older pipe oversized?
I'm not sure I understand the question. We're inserting another pipe and there's a small portion where we're doing that.
Under the creek.
Underneath the creek. It's a
Right.
very small portion and we're only using the host pipe. We did it, well, I was gonna point out here, but we did it on Karen Road. I was pointing to the old office right outside. So the old pipe was 12 inches. And in this case, I think it's a little bit bigger than that. It's 18 inches. And the new pipe is smaller. So there is a brand new pipe going into the host pipe. We're only using that real estate essentially.
Yeah, my question is that would, all things being equal, that would reduce the flow rate. So was the older pipe bigger than it needed to be,
Yes.
and that's why we can get away? with it?
Yes, exactly. I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about the integrity of the whole pipe, but yeah, so we've done, not only with this project, but every project, hydraulic modeling throughout the district to really size the pipe properly, just not only for today's demand, but future demands as Old County Road and this area switches over from industrial to high density housing. We want to make sure our pipes are sized properly. So all that has been considered in the hydraulic model.
So whenever they did that years ago, they just said, forget it, let's put in a really big pipe, we'll have to figure it out or something.
And it was our only feed to the area.
Right.
Also, now we have multiple feeds and we have a gridded system. And pipe was incredibly cheap back then. So a lot of times they use concrete backfill in areas because concrete was cheap. I don't know if you run into that, Matt, in your
We
projects.
require, unfortunately, Paul also, so that's. still-
Yeah, it was just, everything was cheap in the 50s. And I mean, there was just so much building that it was just, oh, let's just, use a 20-inch instead of 18 because that's what the plant's giving us. So, but it's been sized properly for not only now, but future demands.
Okay, and my other question, trying to understand how not to exceed works. Looking at page 43, I was looking at the bid analysis. And if you look at item 4, vehicle and pedestrian traffic.
Mhm.
Our engineer's estimate was 150K, C2R came out 175K, JMB came out with 431,000. That difference exceeds the difference between the two
Right.
bids. So let's say, whenever this project construction starts, CTR can't come back to us and say, hey, turns out there's a lot more traffic and pedestrians than we thought. We want a change order on this. They
Not
can't-
on that particular item, no. So there's a written specification for each one of these bid items that's about half a page long that defines that bid item. That says you're bidding, here's everything that's included in that. And so these are games that contractors play. So even though JMB's price was very close to C2R, they front loaded or included a lot on item 4, which is a lump sum. So lump sum, they get that throughout the project, a certain amount guaranteed throughout the project. And so they decided to reduce other areas and increase that lump sum for that particular item. And so these are games that sometimes contractors play. Sometimes a contractor will see that, hey, I'm measuring 200 feet of pipe, but the engineer has told me there's 150. but I know there's more, so I'm gonna increase my linear footage cost for that pipe, knowing that I'm gonna get a change order down the road. I know I'm getting a little too complicated on this, but in this case, it's somewhat irrelevant to us because we're looking at the bottom price and they're guaranteeing that they will do the work for $175,000 for that described work. Now, if we add something and we say, instead of 5 signs that we told you to install, now we want 10 signs, then we would owe them more money because we're asking them to put in more.
Okay, so there's a big description of what you need to do.
Absolutely.
And as long as it fits, the conditions fit that, they can't say, pay us more.
Absolutely. Not just for that, for everything, for all the bid items.
Okay, great.
The other thing though is that if we were really concerned about it, we could just declare it an imbalanced bid and you're out. I mean, like some of these things where they get Q2 is that they try to load the things that they're gonna get paid for early in the job.
Yeah.
And they try to hit those heavy so that they're cash flow positive throughout the whole job. And then, you look at it and if they're out of whack, I mean, I caught the big imbalance thing, you're getting too cute with the bid schedule, we're not gonna award. But that's separate.
So like mobilization and demobilization, that's one that the number one, that's where contractors will put in a ton of money for what Matt, and then the other items will be less, right? Because they still want to come in low bid.
Right.
But we max that out.
Yep.
Right? In the spec, we say this can't be, I think in this case, 5% or this, some percentage of your total bid.
Sort of all of your traffic control is required for part of the project that they can do at the beginning of the job, they can load that up and then boom, whatever.
We saw this as, there's some wacky stuff, but overall, we saw that it was worth recommending to, we didn't see anything out of whack. So,
I have one
yes,
question. The $6 million number that's in here as being the estimate of the project cost. Is that actually the construction cost or is that the total project cost? Because it's in the capital budget at something close to that. But that's supposed to be covering both
right.
the construction and ancillary engineering and inspection.
So let's go to page, oh, that's a
This
good
is
thing right there.
25,
Yeah,
yeah.
so that $6 million came from the design engineer that we hired to put the project together. That was their estimate of the total construction cost. So it wasn't just construction, right? And so based on their experience and their work on similar sized projects, that's where they got the number. When we put in our engineer's estimate for the projects that we come to the board, we base it on historical information, historical bids that we receive. I'm assuming that's what they did on here. And at the end of the day, it gives an opinion, but at the end of the day, the bids are what they are. That's what the contractor says they can do the work for. And so looking at the 3 low bids, we feel pretty confident that those are, if we reject the bids and go out to bid again, which is our one option that the board always has, I don't believe we're going to get any better bids. I think these are the best prices.
I was just thinking in terms of, that means that we ought to be reevaluating the capital improvement budget or as we go forward, but that doesn't happen.
Well, the estimates that are in the exhibits for the project and are listed here are numbers that came in late 2019 and early 2020. And so a lot has changed since then. And so the capital program that we bring before the board each year, your list of projects, those are based on current cost. So this just hasn't been, we updated it, but it hasn't been, for this project, since we're out in construction and out to bid, it hasn't been brought forward.
Right.
But each year we go back and we recalculate that based on actual bids that we receive.
Good.
I can move on to, oh, sorry, yes.
I had one question. I know that it's standard procedure to have the 10% contingency, but I was thinking back to, I think it was the El Camino project where you guys had to come back and ask for more money, and given that this is such a complicated project, I don't know, does it make sense to think about having a higher percentage of a contingency to make sure we have the funds to cover it, or do we stay with 10%? That's kind of the question I'm.
We feel on a staff side, I can tell you how we feel, and then it's obviously the board's decision, but for transparency purposes, I think what we feel as on the staff, we'd like to come to you. We may end up exceeding that, but I think we feel comfortable that we've communicated with you the challenges of this project, so hopefully you won't be surprised if we come back. Hopefully it's less, but I feel comfortable recommending let's leave it at 10% and have us come back to you.
It is usually an industry standard.
Yes, yeah, so I just want to make sure we have the budget that, you know, that we can fund something if it goes over the 10% contingency.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking about.
That will be a surprise that Judah will have to justify very carefully.
Well, Director Jordan brought up a good point. One is the budget side, you know, making sure we have the money, and the other is it justifiable? Like, we can certainly justify it, but hopefully we have the money too, so that's Brenda's guy.
Yeah, so I mean, with this project, you know, this is going to eat through the remainder of our certificates of participation. So there's a good likelihood that by the time we finish this project, we will have exhausted that, and then we'll be using our capital reserve dollars.
Hopefully not.
Yep.
All right, good. Any more questions on that? Okay, Judah, carry on.
So the other support services are items that we typically don't have on smaller, less complicated projects. We don't typically hire an outside construction management firm. We did for El Camino because that was again on state right away. It was very complicated. We don't have the expertise in-house. This is a similar situation where, and I'm looking at number 3 and 4, and we'll come back to 2, but number 3 is authorizing a professional services agreement with 4Leaf. We interviewed them at the beginning of this project, so now it was about 4 years ago. We selected them based on their experience, based on the fact that they've worked on congested right-of-way, such as the one here. They have experience in San Francisco. They have experience in other areas where there's congestion. Their proposal there, it was something that we vetted in-house in great detail because of the dollars. It's a pretty high dollar amount of proposal before you, a contract, and it includes a lot of night work. So if you look at their, you know, breakdown of hours, it includes half of it is night work, which is overtime hours, half of it is day work. And that contract is purely time and material. So if the contractor goes faster, finishes it in a less amount of time, we pay less for our construction management team. So essentially it's covering us whenever the contractor is out there working. There's also budget in there to go pre-construction to meet with all the business owners. Same thing we did with El Camino. That worked really well. We only had one individual come before us as far as complaining about the project. We hope to replicate that for this project. So there was a lot of due diligence, I feel, that we did internally, Kat, myself, Rena, and Michael, with that proposal, just to make sure that we got it to the point where we're comfortable with that, with the scope of work and associated hours.
Yeah, that, you know, unfortunately, we don't have the expertise, so we have no other choice. Not to work, so we do this. So,
And then the last one, or not the second to last one, is support services for the engineer of record that did the design. They're going to be on board for us if we run, shouldn't say if, because I know when we run into obstacles out there. And they're going to help us through the design process, but embedded in their contract is also cathodic protection or corrosion engineering services and inspection, and also, excuse me, compaction testing that's required as we put this trench together. So usually we separate those out, but what we wanted to do was carry the design team through this project, because they have a lot of background on what they have on this, what they've done on this project. So the contract for design support is higher than what I'm typically used to seeing because of those embedded other sub-consultants in there. Any questions I can answer on that one?
Anybody on this? You guys?
And then on number 2, I'm actually gonna pass that over to Rena because it's involving myself, so I can't talk about my contract and recommend anything, so I'm gonna pass it over
You can talk
to.
behind your back.
So, I mean, even though Juben's office has not been the design engineer for this particular project, as a district engineer, his office has been engaged with us and with the design team throughout the entirety. And you'll see in the staff report that it goes back all the way to the beginning of this project. And so what we're asking the board to award here is just a task order for him to continue in that role to help keep the design engineer and the construction management team just focused on that project and just providing support to staff. We just see, I mean, if he was a member of staff literally here, I mean, it'd be his time and hours, you know, on a time card doing it. But in this case, you know, they're consultants to us. But as you would hear Tammy say, I mean, we consider them as staff. They're just in, you know, part of staff. So we're just asking the board to provide that task order so that he can continue this role throughout the project. Hopefully it goes smoothly. They've been there all along.
That's the 4.
So it's on page 25, you see the total, the fiscal impact. The table there. So you've got the construction contract, the task order with PAC4 Consulting, the 4-lead construction management inspection contract, and the design support service shop and Wheeler. All total, the 4 of them is $5.3 million. When you put in a 10% contingency for all 4 of them, it's $535,000. So it's total about $5.9 million for the 4 contracts. And that's what we're recommending to the board tonight.
And the engineer's estimate was?
Well, the engineer's estimate, you mean, the probable cost of engineering was $6 million. The engineer's estimate, we go back several years, back to 2020. If you just go back up a little bit on that same page 25, you'll see going back to 2020, you know, we had a construction estimate, a little over $3 million. And I actually have the, I think it's page 38. So these are the design descriptions that Juben's office prepared, you know, several years ago. So even back then, and this one, if you see down at the very bottom right, says revision February of 2020, the original in 2015, but they had the total estimated budget for this project back, you know, 3+ years ago for construction, plan design, construction support, construction inspection, and a 10% contingency, about $4 million.
And I think there was another one too.
And there's another one after this for
So
the
it's about
Ralston.
$4.5 million.
Yeah, so here's a little segment in Ralston, same thing, it was another $500,000 for that, so you got a total of about $4.5 million was the estimated cost to do all of it, right?
That was when, how many years ago?
Is in 2020,
It was February.
February of 2020.
And then there's 4% increments per year.
Well, at that time, we estimated 4%, but
Right.
in reality, over the last 3 years, things have not been 4%.
The last couple of years especially, yeah.
Right, so we always, in our crystal ball, we have to put in a number to assume, and so we assumed 4%, but.
Actually, last couple of projects we brought to you, I mean, the last one we brought was the replacement of the services on Hastings, right? And that was more of a maintenance, but still it was big enough where, you know, we brought it to the board for award. And we estimated that to be, I want to say, a little over $1 million, and the bid that we brought to you was under $1 million. So, you know, maybe, you know, but you just don't know what the bids are going to be like, what the bidding climate's like. I know it costs a lot more to buy a gallon of milk than it did 5 years ago, you know, so there is inflation in there and cost. The supply chain issues and so on still kind of affect things. In fact, you know, we were talking about this project and the contractor's talking about starting in probably in September, October.
Right, and this was something I reported out last month, the 20-inch pipe is I wouldn't say special order, but they don't make it in great quantities. And so there's going to be a delay, but it is not going to affect the price. That's a price they've guaranteed, but will affect the schedule. And so once we award this project, the board, if so inclined, awards this project, then next week, we'll start talking to the contractor on the schedule. And the reason that's really important on this particular project is that's when we start notifying and working with the residents. I'm sorry, the business.
Business owner, yeah.
So it's extremely important for us to nail down that schedule. And because that's their livelihood that we're gonna be digging in front of. So we really want to make sure
That's the transmission main, right? The 20 inch,
the 20 inch is the transmission main,
Yeah.
right?
and
So
that's steel.
it's concrete right now. It's a really, really old 1930s vintage concrete pipe.
Concrete coated or concrete pipe itself, the wall is concrete.
I don't believe it's coated. Well, it's cement lined also, but it's not, I don't know what you mean by coated, I guess, I'm sorry.
Well, because I thought that was steel,
It's not steel. No.
steel, and then it had a liner.
It's a pre-stressed, it's a pipe that we don't see or manufacture.
No,
We had a project about 4 years ago up at our supply, where we tie into Hetchy. And we had to actually find, if you recall, I brought to the board, we had to find
Yeah.
the engineer that was retired down in LA that worked for this pipe manufacturer. We brought him out of retirement, paid him directly to help us weld on these connections because you can't do anything with this pipe. So we're getting rid of it essentially.
Mhm.
But we're gonna use the same connection details because we have it now. So it's connected.
Cause that's the same 28 that keeps on going through Redwood City.
Exactly,
Right, yeah.
exactly.
Onto the.
Mhm.
So we have a
Connection.
Yeah, the Hillcrest,
Hillcrest,
yeah.
yeah.
So we have a project in the near future to assess that pipe. Because we're very concerned about its condition, and so we did a similar assessment. Coming up from the tunnels pump station, we brought to the board the condition of that pipe, that one's ductile iron. We used a pig to go through it and assess, we're gonna do similar thing.
We still have hydrants on it, good?
Yeah,
Yes,
Yes.
a few, but we have,
Yeah.
especially through a park through Redwood City.
well, just even going along, I forget the name of the street there in Redwood City, you'll see a different colored hydrant and there are hydrants. They're different from the Redwood City hydrants. Yeah.
Spotting them, those are the best, because you get all kinds of water.
Only a fireman gets.
All kinds of water. I did a lot of, testing on them.
Yeah.
The peanut that we don't.
That's why we have unaccounted for water. See, Redwood City's taking our water.
Yeah, we did. We love fires close to those hydrants. Anyways, all right. Enough of that. Any questions for?
I just have one comment, if it would be, board's okay with it, I would like to request that, consistent with Kathy's, comment, that the staff report have at least some mention of the line item budget. And whether or not what we're spending is within it or not, like, I see 5.8 million, the spend part of it is really clear. What I don't see is just some mention of like, this line item in the CIP project was budgeted to be 6.2 million. There are sufficient funds available to pay for the project. Just 2 sentences like that
Okay.
would be
Yeah,
super
I think
helpful.
about
I mean, the rest of it is 100% spot on. I appreciate all the detail and everything. It would just be nice to know that, yes, we have the money, and it's within the range of what we expected, what we budgeted.
So, Brenda, if we stay, or Pat, if we stay with the 5.8 that we have here. What will it do to our COP? Will it pay the difference?
If I remember right, I just saw this recently, I think we have like 5.3 million in COP dollars left. Yeah, so there'll be a little over $500,000 or whatever that we'll need to pull out of our.
Pull out of Pago and whatever. So it'd be good to have a description in here.
And that's it.
Apologize, should have done
And that's
that.
if we hit the numbers the way they're here.
Right, right.
Any thoughts? A lot of money.
But I mean, if there's no other comments, I'll make a motion to approve.
Do we have to do these separately? Are there separate?
So if you want to streamline the voting, you could take the first three in one motion, vote on that, because Director Wheeler would prefer to abstain from number 4. He does not have a financial interest in his old firm. we evaluated that, so he does not need to recuse, but in order to avoid even an appearance of impropriety, he preferred to abstain. So you could
His
do the
name is
first
there.
three. I know.
Yeah.
There are lots of Wheelers in the world.
We all noticed that. Absolutely, I will do whatever, whatever he's comfortable with, absolutely, so. The
Oh,
motion will be
The
for the
motion,
first three,
no, the motion's for all four, then you call the vote on, or how we want to, I guess, the motion to approve all four.
Do that and then takes a
and then
vote,
we'll do
vote on the first
First
three,
three.
and then a separate vote on the
roll
last.
call for the first three, okay, roll call for the first three motions, two thousand twenty-three,
Who's the second?
15,
I'll
16,
second.
17, and the rest of Jordan seconds, okay.
Okay. Director Schmidt,
Yes.
Director Wheeler.
Yeah.
Director Jordan,
Yeah,
Vice President Zuko,
Yes.
President Bella.
Yes, the motion was made by Vice President Zuka.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, okay, good. All right, cool. Are you good, honey?
Yes, so you want me to do the vote for the second one?
Yes, please. So
Okay.
do I have a
For
motion
number four,
for number four?
yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So. So we still have a motion,
Same motion, same second.
same second. And roll call.
Okay. Director Schmidt,
Yes.
Director Wheeler,
Abstain.
Director. I'm so sorry, it just gets confusing when I'm trying to do it in the order. Director Jordan,
yes,
Director, President Bella,
Yes.
and Vice President Zuko.
Yes.
Good.
There was a long pause before the directors decided to move on this. So I was like, man, is this gonna go down or? You guys were giving some drama.
I don't think
That was,
there's any danger of it not.
It's a lot of moolah, that's
A lot
all,
of money.
that's all, yeah. And it's not our money, so we are a little more careful with that,
Absolutely.
but anyway, congratulations.
Quick question on this, is there any reporting to be done when we finish using the COP?
There-
Congrats, we did it.
Yeah. I don't know if there's anything required, but we can, we'll definitely let you know that, okay, so now it's official, the COP dollars are all spent, but I'm not sure there's any specific reporting requirements.
Good question for Dan Bergman.
Yeah, well, maybe Dan or I'll ask Tammy too, because she was heavily involved.
If we ever go back for a new COP, then they want to know that we spend. use that
Right.
money.
Yeah, and so typically what they have is an annual meeting to kind of find out how things are going. And we haven't had that yet, so I suspect that that's going to be coming. They're gonna be asking us, how's it going? When are you guys gonna be spent? And we're gonna tell them that the board awarded this last project and it's gonna eat it all up.
Well, it won't actually be
Spend
spent
one.
for a couple.
Yeah, I mean, the final expenditure, that's probably gonna be sometime in early 2024, I suspect.
Because we're going to be paying for harbor and we're paying for other contracts. This one, yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah,
Most of it's going to occur after we run out of COP.
yeah.
Okay.
It-
Wisely, right?
Did you want to say something, Al?
Well, just the board, I'm sorry, I didn't catch which board member mentioned tracking the dollars. They are reported on the capital budget every month, how much is left in the COP fund. So, they'll be on the monthly report moving forward, presumably.
So it's in your packet.
It's in the packet.
Yes, in the financial reports.
All right,
There it is.
cool, all right, good, we'll move on to. Item number 8, regular business agenda, consider scheduling special board meeting for development of MPWD 23-24 strategic plan, CAC.
All right, well, if you recall, when we met in March, the board had a number of comments and gave direction on the strategic plan, so staff has since worked on that and revised it. It wasn't part of your packet, but you had asked to, get the strategic plan as quickly as you could, so that was transmitted to you. So next step is scheduling another meeting. There are 4 dates here that we confirmed with Julie Brown as being available. 2 of them, Brenna is not available for, because he's on vacation. And so, these are for, consideration. And a question we do want to pose to you is, in particular, like Juven and Julie, would it be okay for them to attend by Zoom? And have, this kind of hybrid meeting with.
So that,
everyone up there.
but these four here, decided to, that when it's available, and everybody else is available, right? From your staff.
We haven't confirmed with everyone else, but Julie is.
Okay,
Yeah, these are basically dates that Julie's available,
okay.
and I think staff is the only, I'm not gonna be available at 12 and 13.
No, you should be, so I think that, and I just said that Wednesday the 28th is just jam packed for me already, but the 29th is good for me. So that Rena is good, Kat is good,
I guess it is.
29th,
That's what we were really wanting. But you can have it without me. I already gave you my comment. I wanted it to emote and then we'll see if it emotes.
We'll see if it floats.
If it floats. Yeah.
okay.
Going back to the drawing board.
So,
I can make the 28th or 29th that I could make, and then I can make the 2 in July. I would have to reschedule as well. I currently can't do it. I'm committed to be somewhere. Yeah.
When you cannot change it, or there's a
There's a
possibility.
possibility I could change it. That's the only date that works, the possibility that I will cancel my personal plans and make the board the priority, but yeah. It's gonna come with a lot of guilt on your guys.
No, I mean, because if anything, it's impossible for
No,
you
it's
to
not-
all
it's
see what I can
possible,
do
it's
on the
possible.
28th, but.
I mean, it's possible. It's just, yeah, so I guess.
Is it
we could
okay,
just-
we'll leave it to the 29th?
Yeah,
now?
can we do it a little bit later? Like, I mean, not 7, but like, I don't want to work that one. Not all possible. I might be able to get both done. Like, keep it at 6:30 or something like that.
You want us to have dinner for you as well?
Yeah, but we start at 6:30 instead of 6. For him, so that we could, is that okay?
Yeah, and then Julie and Juben can just zoom in from their office or home. They can participate that way.
This is for the 29th, we're talking about.
Yeah,
I thought.
so Julie
Oh,
and Juben.
Julie, okay.
Julie Brand will be here,
Yes,
but Julie
yeah,
Sherman
Julie,
and
the
Juben,
other Julie will be here, because these are, all four are good for her.
correct.
Yes.
Okay, for Brown, okay. All right. Good.
Yeah, I can do both dates next week. I'm not in town in the July dates.
Okay. Sure,
Yeah, I can do either Wednesday or
good,
Thursday.
all right, so we'll do the
The
29th.
29th.
29th,
6:30 was good.
and it will be at 6:30. Correct?
6:30 here. We'll have food.
Yeah. We'll have some. All right, good. All right. So we'll kill that one. B.
Yeah.
The resolution 23-19.
Yeah.
Pat, right now?
That'll be me. I'll take this one. So, yeah, we're bringing this to you because as you probably know, well, maybe you do, maybe you don't. But anyways, we've had a couple of portable office trailers at the Dairy Lane site. Pardon me?
The business side, does it?
Yeah, okay. We've had one since 2017, when we needed to have some space. And so it's been there that long, renting it or leasing it since that time. And then the second trailer we just brought last year, when Tammy was transitioning out, we had a whole bunch of people in the office. We had some new people that made it and didn't make it or whatever. We're just out of room. So we decided to rent a second office trailer from William Scotsman. And so at the moment right now, we're paying about $2,200 a month, at least those two trailers. We now know with the work that's gonna have to take place at the Dairy Lane operations, we're gonna need that space. And so we're just suggesting instead of throwing that money or, paying the rent to William Scotsman, that we buy these trailers. They've told us that if we give them about $34,000 in change for each one, they'll sell them to us. So just leave them there. And so I was telling Director Jordan, I met with her yesterday, that the reason we're coming to you now also is this, as we're getting toward the end of this fiscal year, we know that we have some extra cash from other monies that have come in. So we've got the the money available to buy these trailers. Next year, I don't know if we'd be recommending this, because I think we're, right now we're projecting we're gonna be in a little bit tighter fiscal situation. So, we're bringing this to you now. I know it's just, maybe kind of, on the spur of the moment, but, we can continue to lease them, because we're gonna need the space, or we could buy them. And if we buy them, they want a little under $70,000 for the 2 trailers. And I gave the board 4 options, we can continue to do what we're doing, pay $2,200 a month, but we're gonna be needing those trailers for at least another 30 months, probably longer. We could purchase one of them, either one of them, or, we can turn them both in, or one of them in. I would suggest that we don't turn them in just because we need the space. And it's even if we, we've been working on getting the Folger site operational, but then now that I have 3 different places where we've got staff scattered all over the place, and we've been working really hard just to try and maintain that continuity, working together, meeting, Kat's, you're gonna see in her report that we just had a what we call the unity lunch last week, just to get everybody together, just to talk, just to make sure we maintain that connection, because we want to maintain our work culture. We're really proud of what we got here. We worked really hard to get here. And so we want to maintain that. And so right now we're having to have some extra space out there, and we're just recommending that the board consider, spending $70,000 before the end of this fiscal year on these 2 trailers.
Right, question. How much, go ahead.
I just had a question in terms of, whether or not at some point later, when we move back into Dairy Lane, whether having a secondary space at Folger as a backup for potential flood event or
That's right.
something similar,
Yeah.
that the trailers may actually be useful to have them there.
They could be, yeah.
As some additional space.
That, and we could always sell them, or we could rent them. I mean, from time to time, I'm sure people could use some temporary office space, and, that could be something that we could do. I don't know, but yeah, definitely, there's some value to having those trailers, having them around. Right now, they're just, we can't do without them. Yeah.
So, okay, we had a question. How much? Do we have any maintenance? Do we call them for maintenance? Because if we'll buy them, then the maintenance is on us.
Right.
Do we know how to maintain them?
I mean, the only thing really that there has been any maintenance is just the air conditioners, and it's just been, changing the filters. I'm not aware that we've had any major. Well, there was one, when we initially got the first trailer out there, I remember within a couple of years, there was a drainage issue that they had to address, and they had, there was some mold that was showing itself. And so they came out and repaired that. And I'm not aware that we have any issues.
Well, that mold for a couple of trailers in San Mateo resulted in us not being able to inhabit it, then resulted in us having to pay 20 grand to have someone demolish it.
Yeah, no.
So,
Yeah, this was remediated.
Yeah, I think leaking roofs, those things aren't, but not well built. So I think the answer is yes, it will take maintenance. It's just a matter of.
Yeah, I mean, so far, the other thing I'm aware of is, we just have been changing the filters on the air conditioning heating system on there, and it's maybe mopping floors and stuff like that, but there's not been anything major. I mean, I live, in a travel trailer, and these are a little bit heavier due to my travel trailer, but they're trailers. They're not, they're not a house.
Vehicles.
Yeah, they're vehicles. Yeah.
So the other question would be, when we don't need them anymore, are they going to be in the way that they're gonna take space that we need, and they're just going to be?
Well, as the director, Wheeler is mentioning, there could be a place for them potentially at the Folger site. At the Folger site, there's room to park them there if you wanted to park them there for a month or 6 months or whatever. They could be, again, at the end, they could be sold, potentially sold. I suspect there could be a market for them. Some engineering firm might want it because they've got a job that they need to have something, I'm sure they got some
We
value.
have the ability to tow them up there?
Or somebody could tow them for us, but we've got trucks heavy enough that could probably tow them, a dump truck or a couple heavy pickup
And
trucks.
you just hitch them and.
Yeah, they've got a tongue and a hitch, yeah.
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 I mean, the rent that that we pay every month in a year, we basically break even almost, you know?
In a year at the $2,200, it's $26,000, something like that a year, right? So in a couple, 2 or 3 years, you know, you already paid for them, right? And we've had the one trailer, since 2017. Now granted, back then, the lease payment wasn't $900. I want to say it was around $600 or $700 a month. So over time, it's even gone up, right? Just like anything else. And so currently we're paying, you know, around almost 1,000 for one and a little over 1,100 for the other. Or
So
1,200.
what we should probably have, and you probably thought about this already, but there has to be some kind of a manual how to maintain them, because no matter what, if you don't keep them up, they're going to be like an eyesore for us as well, you know?
Yeah.
They have to be, you know,
Yeah,
kept clean,
some paint, yeah.
maintained and all that. So that 3 years from now, when the weather and the sun and the wind has beaten on them, you know, they'll be in a decent enough that they can still be used, you know? Because I don't want the staff to come here, that's what, you know, they're a dump now and we have to get rid of them. Somebody has to pay to get rid of them and so we should, you know, we're gonna buy them, we're gonna take care of them.
Yeah, well, we definitely, I mean, just like any piece of equipment, we try to take care of things. You know, we've got a decent budget for maintenance of the facilities and our equipment. So this would just become part of our equipment.
They're not cheap, you know, they're used. They're not-
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe you can, I don't know, negotiate a better price for both of them.
We'll try. I'm not gonna guarantee anything, but we'll try and see if we can negotiate a better price.
Right, any other question or any objection to this? Okay. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve resolution 2023-19.
Second?
Second.
All right. We have a motion by Director Smith. A second by Director Wheeler. Consider resolution 2023-19. Okay,
Director Schmidt,
Yes.
Director Wheeler.
Yeah.
Director Jordan.
Yes.
Vice President Tito.
Yes.
President Lee, no one.
yes.
Thank you.
Right. Fine, right now.
Yeah. I'll mention it to Michael.
All right, so, item 8C. The report of the California San Francisco Regional Water System Conditions. Running.
Yeah, it's just an update to everything you've seen before, you know, of course, right now, the state is still inundated in water, and we're just looking really good. And I've been, you know, for the last year or so, just kind of comparing, you know, the images from year to year, just to kind of give you a sense. And so what's up on the screen here is just the reservoir levels in 2022 in the middle of June last year. And so again, I always point out the Shasta, the Oroville on the top left, the Don Pedro, which is the water bank for the regional system on the right in the middle, and then the San Luis Reservoir, which is on the left side in the middle. And so you can see back then, they were maybe below 50% to maybe as high as 80% for Don Pedro, not looking that good. And of course, they was slowly depleting over the last few years just because there hadn't been a lot of rain, right? And so now look at them a year later, I mean, they're just all pretty full. The Shasta Reservoir is about 2.5 times, you know, in terms of water in the reservoir, 2.5 times larger than it was last year at the same time, right? Oroville 125% or 1.9 times. Don Pedro is nearly full. And again, that one, you know, you've got the irrigation districts and the SFPUC. I think that they like it, you know, having some room in there because they're just anticipating some more runoff coming out of the Hetch Hetchy system. And then the San Luis Reservoir, the last one in the middle there, is just full, you know, and I've driven by the San Luis Reservoir and it is full. And I can just imagine that's going to stay full when Steve Ritchie and the SFPUC team made their report, you know, at the water managers meeting. They were saying that the Hetch Hetchy watershed was dumping something like 12,000 CFS into Hetch Hetchy, you know, and holy cow, how much water is that? You know, and it works out to like 24,000 acre feet a day is melting and going into the Hetch Hetchy system. And that was in early June. You can imagine if it gets warmer, there'll be that much more snow melt, and it could be that much more. And then Lewis, I still recall when you went to the HIA meeting, you mentioned when you're flying back into the Bay Area, you noticed the amount of snow in the Sierra Nevada. You guys,
It's crazy.
you couldn't believe how much snow was still up on the Sierra Nevada. So You know, there's still a lot of water up there, you know. So that's a good thing, right? You know, and then this next slide, just kind of looking at the regional water system storage conditions. You know, in the top part of the Tuolumne system, you're looking at what it looked like at the end of May in 2023, and then looking what it looked like a year earlier at the end of May in 2022. And you'll see overall that, you know, there's more water this year, but even so, what's catch your attention is the Hetch Hetchy Reservoir. This year, it's at 82% of capacity, whereas last year it was as full as it was going to get. And the difference being this year, there's so much snow melting, they're releasing water, right? So they can have room for that snow melt to get into the reservoir, which I just think is interesting. And then, of course, you see the water bank right now, it's full. It's been full since January this year. Last year it was at 43%. And Steve Ritchie just always said that was their biggest concern, is that the water bank just wasn't, you know, they weren't able to park any water there. And that was a concern of theirs, was just not having that in case of some sort of emergency. And then snowpack. Just looking at the snowpack. The black line, there's a really solid black line. That's the historic median water year. It's like a 30-year look. And if you look at the bar in June, you know, right now, typically they're at about 25% snowpack left. This year, that big solid red line says that there's still over 100%, 150% of snowpack. It's just a lot of snow up there, which is great. It's great news for the California water situation. And then the next slide is just the amount of water that's available to the regional water system from the Tuolumne River. You know, the first rights belong to the irrigation district. So the Tuolumne and Turlock and the Modesto irrigation district get the first cut of the water. And then after that, you know, the water is available to the regional water system. If you look back at the on the far right hand side where you see the 201 number, that's 201,000 acre feet that was made available to the regional water system last year for the entire year. This year, by you know, at the beginning of June, it was almost 1,800 or 1.8 million acre feet has been made available to the regional water system. That's just how much water is there. It'll be interesting to see if it gets up to that 3,309 number that was what in 2017. You know, if there's that much snow melt and then that much water made available to the regional water system. And then the total deliveries, we finally crossed the drought year 2015 in terms of, you know, daily demand in the regional water system. You know, it hit 195 million gallons a day back in early June. And that was the first time it had crossed even in the 2015, which is a dry year where everybody was conserving water. Just again, telling you, people are still thinking about, you know, conserving water, using water efficiently, using water wisely. But, you know, maybe now they're starting to irrigate outside, I suspect. Our customers on the next slide on page 98, at the end of May, our use was still below the 2015 level, but we're getting close there. I suspect that when I bring this to you in July, you know, for June and so on, we probably will have exceeded the 2015 June number this year. Our residential per capita is just under 60 gallons per day per person, which is not bad. It's in terms of the regional water system, we're probably kind of in the middle of the pack in terms of our residential GPCD. Yeah, there's some communities that, you know, they're probably about 40, 45 GPCD. Yeah. But I think a lot of those are communities that have a lot more apartments, you know, and not, you know, homes with front yards and backyards. Yeah, but still, our customers do a really good job watching their water use. And then just this last one, this graph I put together a couple of years ago just shows the cumulative, how we're tracking. We're tracking this year is a green line. It's matching the 2022 target the SFPUC have. They haven't given us a target this year, but I kept that orange line on there just for comparison sake purposes. And then the blue line is a 5-year average for us. And so you can see that we're below our 5-year average and just kind of tracking right along with what, you know, SFPUC would have liked to seen us use last year. So again, our customers are probably still have a little bit of water efficiency on their minds, and we'll see how it happens. It is having an effect on our revenue, and you'll hear Al talk about it in a financial report, you know. So we'd like to see customers do it, but you know,
That means you do, that means you don't.
that's right. It is, right? Yeah. So that's pretty much the report. I don't know if any of the board members or something caught your attention that you want to ask a question about.
Good report. And it is true, there's tons of snow still up there, it's unbelievable. The amount of whiteness, because usually you fly over this time of year, there's a lot of black peaks, but it's all white still, lower 5 feet seriously, in June, there's much snow left. So it's pretty impressive. Good report, Rena. Any questions for Rena? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering now that we're out of the drought, should this agenda item change? So I don't know if Rena, you or Kat thought about that or not. And it's not urgent, and especially if this doesn't take a huge amount of time.
It doesn't take a lot of time. I mean, at most, it probably takes like an hour and a half, whatever, to gather the information. I don't spend a lot of time on it. I just find the information interesting.
Yeah.
I find it interesting. So, I mean, as long as the board finds it useful, we'll put it out here and share it with you, and I think that the information the SFPC shares is interesting
Yeah,
too.
but only because we are coming out of an extraordinary precipitate year, whether it was rain or snow, we've never had a season like this in many, many years. Which is, I find it interesting to me to track it, what happened after this deluge that we had all that time in the winter months, the wet months. And how does it translate now? And I find it interesting, so.
Yeah, I guess
And I see some of it already at Bosco when SFPUC gives us their report. But I enjoy the way when they present it, present more into a more localized statement, so. Yeah, but
I was gonna say, I appreciate it too, and I feel like one way we could approach it is that we are in 2 states, we're in drought, or we're in pre-drought. So maybe now we've moved from drought to pre-drought.
yeah. Which is
Yeah,
true.
or just
I mean,
just
we still live in California, so.
Yeah,
we still
water
forget that,
conditions, the water conditions in the Bay Area, California type thing or something. We can change the title.
Absolutely.
And,
Yeah.
And we could decide, it could be about, we could kind of think about what are we doing long term to deal with the next drought. Thank you.
Good. Anything else? Or good report, man. Thank you.
Making pretty good progress tonight.
They just jinxed us. Lewis jinxed us with the rock at Harbor. And,
We're gonna get stuck on that.
oh, the change order is gonna mention you by name.
Louis Bella change order number.
Oh, my God. Zero money though. So, Rena, I guess you're still up, right?
Yeah, the IGM and ops report, not much to mention on the IGM report, other than that we finally are at a point now with the board approving the letter agreement back in March. We've been working hard to try and make sure we had all of our I's dotted, our T's crossed, when it goes to going from a 5-day work week to a 4-day work week. So we've done that. We've been talking to some labor attorneys and so on to see if there are any issues with CalPERS or with Fair Labor Standards Act or anything like that. And so Monique and Kat and I met with the bargaining group, Michael Anderson and his folks there to say, okay, we're ready to pull the trigger. So I just want to let you guys know that we should be in a position to start a 4-day work week with the first full pay period in July, which begins on July 8th. And so what that means is that the operations folks will be working a Monday through Thursday, 9-hour, 4-day, 36-hour work week. And here in the office is going to be open 5 days a week from 8 to 4:30. And we'll have 2 shifts there. We'll have one shift that works Monday through Thursday, and then the other one that'll work Tuesday through Friday. And so that we maintain that. We'll see how it works. I mean, we're also hoping, and Kat, Monique and I have been talking about, the recruitment for lead operator and water system operator. And we think, and we're hoping that the 4-day work week is going to be something that's going to make us even that much more appealing to certified operators in the region here, so that we can attract some good people to join our team. We're not hearing a lot of people saying that they're doing this. And I think it was you, Kat, they were saying that you mentioned someplace and people saying, really, you guys are doing that? You know, somebody was mentioning that, so.
Michael was actually talking about.
Who's Michael?
Yeah, they're in Hayward, they're doing a main replacement in his neighborhood, and he was talking to the inspector. And the inspector tried to recruit him, and he said, wait, we're doing a 4-day work week. And the inspector was like, well, maybe.
Maybe
Tell me
I'll come
more.
over with your side.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, we're definitely. And the
Working,
advertisements.
working hours,
hard on
is a huge decision for a lot of people, you know?
Yeah.
So when you say you're working 2 shifts, are they going to be the same people working those shifts, or would they rotate at some point?
I don't know for how we figured that. I suspect that we're talking about admin.
Admin,
Yeah.
It'll be different. Well, everybody will be here
3 days.
Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday,
Right.
but it'll be different people on Monday and Friday. So
Okay.
different, so one group will be off on Monday, one group will be off on Friday.
And there's what, like
Everybody
six,
will be here the other
6
day.
people here, right? 5 or 6 people in the admin section?
9,
9? Oh, 9. Okay.
sorry. That was a fast count.
Well,
Yeah, it's 9.
Yeah.
all right,
And the other thing I was gonna mention to you too is just, Juven and I, we've got a process where when we know what the budget's gonna look like for district engineer, we typically issue some task orders for services. So he and I have been working on 5 different task orders that, you know, the company will be providing services to us. Typical things like right now, they're doing a distribution system analysis when a developer comes in or somebody needs a fire sprinkler upgrade. Anytime anybody does any work nowadays on their home, they've got to put in fire sprinklers, and typically that requires that we do a distribution system analysis and make sure that they put in their fire sprinkler person, you know, designs with the right criteria. And so there's a fee for that we charge developers. So that particular task order, you know, we're going to get reimbursed, even though we're paying Juven, we'll get reimbursed from the homeowner or the developer. And then we have another one where we're having the developers deposit, as always, you know, whether it's a residential or commercial, $3,000 to $5,000 to review their plans. Brent used to do a lot of stuff. Well, we no longer have Brent, so I've asked Juven's office to do that for us. And again, that's a reimbursable item or task order that they'll be providing for us. And then just doing their regular things, reimbursement for
but that pays for itself.
that pays for itself.
And some.
Right, yeah, they pay for itself, and then, you know, he does his district engineer stuff like maintaining our construction standards and specifications and the drawings and those type of things. So it's a total of, like I said, 5 task orders, and 2 of them are reimbursable from, you know, the property owners or developers, and the other 3 fit within the budget that the board approved for the district engineer's office. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. It's just something we've been doing the last couple of years since we've been doing task orders
Yeah.
at Juven's office.
And I personally cannot see how it could be done any other way. I mean, we were lucky to have Brent, but not knowing, and I have never supervised him, but there's no way that Brent would probably have done probably as good a job as an engineer who does it every day, which is their only job. They
Right.
do, you know, because Brent had other responsibilities.
He had other
that he was
responsibilities,
doing,
yeah.
So he couldn't be kind of focusing on that. So
Yeah.
I think that the quality of work would probably be a little bit better too.
And the other thing, I was just gonna mention the operations on page 102. I just like to always point out the USA request, right? So last month we had 312, and for the month we had 3,300 and almost 3,350 location requests in during the month of May. We get a lot of them, so average,
That's an indicator on the construction activity.
Yeah.
that's going on.
yeah. Yeah.
It's a big indicator.
Yeah. So, and then we had 3 service line leaks, so nothing major, knock on wood there, right? I shouldn't have said that, but anyways, pretty quiet.
though.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I've got to share with the board. If there's anything that sticks out that you want to ask, you know, please do.
Yeah, there was.
Oh,
Just
okay.
taking care of these things.
I'll bring that up in my report.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, good. All right, very good. Anything, Lorena? Good work. Thank you, Ren.
Thank you.
And then we'll go to the assistant GM. Pat, please.
Great. So you hopefully have received your CCR in the mail. So we did something a little bit different this time and decided to highlight the Long Big On program on the cover. One is kind of a thank you for the customers who have participated and hopefully to stir up a little bit more renewed interest when they kind of see how nice it looks. We didn't, notice there wasn't a lot of messaging about the drought or anything, but it was more, thank you for conserving. It's important to keep conserving because it keeps our reservoirs full for the next drought. So actually this weekend I will be headed to the CSDA General Manager Leadership Summit. Which will be interesting. I certainly haven't been to that conference before, but I listed a few of the topics here just to kind of give you a feel for what that conference is about. So I'm excited. Tammy will be there and she's actually giving on a panel on managing the never-ending crisis, being an adaptive, resilient leader in uncertain times. So
Yeah.
a little bit of blood talk. So I'll make sure I'll heckle her through that, through that discussion.
Ask her some difficult questions.
Where were you on the?
Yeah. You're good,
Um,
good. But there's
and-
some really good topics.
Yeah, it would be great. And, now that we're kind of more subtle, but we're, still separate, we're still working on trying to figure out, good ways to do more team building, and staff are doing that as well. So we had a safety meeting a couple of weeks ago where 2 staff members did a couple of really good kind of team building exercises, building on stuff they learned from the CSU Leadership Academy and bringing that to us and sharing that with us. And so that was really good. We also started, as Brenna mentioned, our unity lunches, which was good. We just had burritos here and had some kind of like icebreaker questions we went through. One of our staff just got engaged, so we were able to celebrate him and get some cake and just have a nice connection there. And so we'll plan on doing those roughly monthly. And then, as you've gotten the email, we have scheduled to do Mid-Peninsula family barbecue and potluck in September. So hopefully you all can come with your families as well. We haven't decided exactly the time, but it'll be roughly noon. We might start a little earlier, especially if we're doing the barbecuing ourselves. And then we'll do potluck for the side dishes and stuff. So the Dairy Lane rehab project is ongoing. We've scheduled meetings with both the city of Belmont and One Shoreline to share the project and talk all wonderful things like CEQA and who's responsible and all of that. So that's going ahead. They were able to take all of the input that they gathered from us through the surveys, through the one-on-one meetings, everything we've shared with them. And so they've put together this, incredibly detailed list of all of our current space uses and all of our, planning, space for the future. And so they're working on coming up with their scenarios for how to actually get that onto the site. So that's going well. And then the last thing I just wanted to mention is the Hastings service line replacement. So that has been, substantially completed. I think there's just a couple little things left on the punch list at this point. There is a second small change order that we approved. And that of course is with C2R, the firm that you just approved for the old Kangaroo project. So and I think President Bill, if you had a question
Yeah.
related here.
Yeah, have any comment or question?
My guess on Dairy Lane is that we would do the sequel, so we have to make the first decision.
So, we talked to our secret consultants we've worked with in the past. And they said that if we have to do major grading on the site and then the city has to issue a grading permit, it actually might switch to them being the lead agency. It's unlikely and we're early stages, but it's unlikely that we'll need to do any real grading on the site. It looks like we'll be able to fit everything. Looks like seismic concerns won't require, anything major. So we think will probably be the lead agency, but we need to have the conversation with the city and make sure they don't have any, completely out of normal requirements for what triggers a grading permit or anything like that. And then, of course, we just wanna understand from them any other parameters and requirements, like if they wouldn't let us put a second story on or anything like that, and if we think that would be off the table, we just need to know that up front. And we have certainly lots of questions about what they intend to do long-term with flood, planning, because we talked about, it's all well and good if we, button up our buildings so that a flood hits, but if we can't get to our buildings, while the roads are flooded, that's not ideal. So we'll start that conversation.
Couple of things. On Hastings. I received a phone call with somebody huffing and puffing on Hastings. And because they were changing the services. And she goes like, how come they didn't change my service? I'm like, how do you know that? Everybody else has a piece of new concrete in front of their house and I don't. And I go, oh, if you want the concrete in front of their house, okay, fine. So I was wondering if it was done. So she called here complaining. And Victor Fong was just absolutely on the spot. I mean, he calmed her down. And she called me back, and said, guess what? They had changed mine already before, so it didn't have to be changed. I go like, good old Victor, good for him. But he really handled that beautifully, so, because I happen to know this family well, and I know they things like, you're on the water board, so how come? All right, good. So, anyways, a meeting or two ago, I'm not sure. We mentioned, or there was a mention of a lady landscaper who was helping with drought resistant. Who was that lady? Do you guys remember?
Juanita Salisbury, she,
So that's the one that's here too.
yeah,
Okay, because I circled her. I go, I wonder if she was this lady. So she works for Bosca?
she doesn't work for Bosca, she's independent, but Bosca hires and contracts with her to host these workshops, and she has a number of different topics. She has another one coming up that's actually a hands-on in-person one on succulents, so how to work with the plant and manipulate succulents.
But she's a landscape.
She's a landscape architect. She's actually a really interesting person. A landscape architect is like her second career. She actually has a PhD in some type of one of the psychology fields, but specifically studying eating and consumption habits. And then she does this, and she has a real passion for it. She does a lot of work on native gardens, converting public space into native gardens. For pollinators.
Okay. I'm asking because in Redwood Shores, I've seen long stretch of the center median that are being ripped out, and putting something different. And I was wondering if she was probably involved in something like that. And I think they're replacing it with either, low water vegetation or drought resistant or something like that, so.
Yeah.
And I think they've taken out some of their irrigation systems. So that's, okay, very cool. Any other questions for Kat? Okay, very good, thank you. All right, I've been services, money.
Okay, well, you may remember that last month I brought up our meters age and the need that we'll be needing to replace them, and we're gonna go through a methodical evaluation of our meters and determine what's what. So I have been working with Aquametrics, and I did have the pleasure of meeting their representative. It's the programming representative. I also talked to the salesperson who sent me the warranty information, which was really a good time to try to read through. But they're gonna do an analysis of our meters and then let me know so that I don't have to do that. What is what? What is the age of the meters? what needs to be replaced. Because they're aging out, and then some meters are 10 years. Some meters are 15 years, some meters are 20 years, just depends on what meter it is. So I also learned that our portal will be updated. They didn't know, for some reason, Census didn't know that we're a customer. So now they know. Isn't that great? So now they know we're a customer, so we'll be updated in our portal, and the portal is really where I wanted to get to and talk about. I included a brochure which I received from the meter representative. His name is Ryan. And he also brought up our portal for me and showed it to me, which I hadn't seen before. So I got a little bit excited about it. Now I know that we have a focus on water conservation, so we have been doing things to incentivize customers to sign up for Water Watch and get the information to them. They can schedule alerts. They can find out what their daily water use is, average water use is. They can set up alerts when they're on vacation and so forth. But we haven't had a huge interest. So I'm going to try to change tactics a little, and instead of focusing on water conservation, although I'm not going to ignore it, I'm just not going to focus on it. I think people are maybe a little tired of hearing about it. But if I had this option at my house to get this information, I wouldn't have suffered that leak that I suffered when they called me. But I just think that this has a lot of information, and the new portal, when we get upgraded, will be even better. But in the meantime, we do call it Water Watch, which I found out today. We do call it Water Watch. It's the same portal, but it does have a lot of good stuff for customers. So I'm gonna work with Misty. We're gonna put some information together. We're gonna start trying to get information to new customers. We'll get it out to our old customers. We'll post some stuff on our website. We'll start updating the back of our bills, which has some really good information on it, but it's also a little bit old. So we'll update it and but I guess we did just update it. So all of the old information, like our address and things like that, has been updated. But I think we could use a little bit of revamping so that maybe it emotes to post-COVID. And that's really all I have.
Very good. Yeah, about more money. Very good.
Quick question.
Yes, please.
Glad to see this, and glad to hear there's plans to get some of this information out. Summer's a great time for people to know about vacation watching too. I had brought up something a couple months ago. I'd heard about how they're using a similar system in Austin to let people know when their usage rate is bumping them up into a higher tier. I was wondering if it might be possible to use this information or again to be able to provide that service to our customers.
I'm not sure if we can send that information, but I can look into it. But what they can do is we can tell them which is on the back of our bill, what the rate schedule is. And then they can put that together with it, at least until maybe the new portal may have more sophisticated information.
Okay, so you're not sure the current portal can do it or our current system can do it? We think it might be possible later.
Yeah,
If it's gonna change really soon, I don't know if we bother dealing with it right
well, it's still good to know what our system offers.
now. Yeah, I think it would be a great service to help give to folks.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So right now you can set up a daily, I think it's only daily trigger. Like
The
you-
average daily.
Yeah, well, no, if I get an email if my use goes over a certain amount on a day or 24-hour period.
Right, but it's your average daily use.
No, it's my actual daily use. not
That's
my
what
average.
this says, it's your average.
If I
I'm
use,
just going by what it says.
yeah, no, I guarantee you, it was not, because it would be like if in the last 24 hours, I use more for that one day than a certain amount, I get an email. My average daily use would be like, what's my average over 30 days? So it's giving it to me if it exceeds a certain amount in a day. I'm just wondering whether you can set up a different time horizon, like you get to a certain tier after so many units, you can set it up so that, but I have to pick a different denominator basically. Instead of per day, it would be,
Yeah, there's probably some way our customers could do it, but I'm also wondering if we can't just do it for them. And just,
We may be able to.
yeah, I had to set it up, I had to go online, I had to pick it, I had to pick a number. Then I got annoyed by all the emails, so then I had to bump the number up.
But it's still going to get to the 1,146 customers that are enrolled. So the goal is to get us more customers into the system so that we can benefit by the tools that they can benefit by the tools that we've invested in.
Although it would be nice if it actually gave you real-time alerts if you've got a water leak or
Yeah.
blown a pipe out or whatever, because, you know, it doesn't tell you what happened today, it tells you what happened yesterday.
Exactly.
Okay, well, that does sound nice. Can we have that?
Real time.
It's okay if I know what happened yesterday.
Can we get a quick push? Somebody's water is going through the roof. Can that get to them in
We
an
do.
hour, 2 hours?
I don't know if it can get to them, but we do get alerts on high use. Although I think we call it.
So it doesn't automatically go to the system, but we get it.
We get the reads every day. We can get the reads every day here. We get them about every 7 days because that's when we update. But I'm working with our reps to determine what it is we can do and then working with our billing people to get them more educated in what our options are and to be more, what's the word, active.
So Monique, there is this one particular customer who had, you know, a major use in one day. How do we have to actually look, or does it alert us?
If we it comes to us on a list.
Alert, okay, good. So I think the alert does come in, okay.
And then we can look at what their use is and see what time of day it is. We can see if it's like 3 o'clock in the
So
morning.
then it will be up to us then to notify that customer.
That's how it works right now. I'm assuming that they can see it too, because from what I see on here, you can see what your use is on this little chart right here.
Mhm.
So I'm assuming you can see what they can see. I just don't really have access to it, so I can't tell you the
So
answers
what
yet.
you're saying is as soon as the system alerts, that alert will automatically go to like an iPhone of a customer.
Yeah, that's, well, I still haven't heard. Yeah.
It
I think it's
will
great.
send you a message.
But you
The
didn't say
issue
it.
is that currently it only updates once a day.
Yeah.
And so you can find out that you sprung a leak yesterday, but not today.
Correct.
So, you know, the tree guy blew part of my irrigation system and didn't tell me. So when the irrigation system turned on, there's water shooting up in the air and I can't
No,
tell.
you
what's
you
going
didn't
on.
need no electronics to tell you, you could see. it,
Better.
right?
Well, no, you couldn't see it because it was down in the bottom of the yard.
Better than finding out next month.
Right. Plus,
They have a swimming pool, in the backyard. Hello.
plus I was running the irrigation system in the off hours type of thing. So
Okay.
rather than, you know, in the middle of the day. So I wasn't paying attention to what was going on.
I mean, I think there's a larger question about what feature set the software offer.
Right.
And maybe we can sort of research that and sort of figure out like, what does that menu look like? And to your point, like, I mean, we're asking some questions, but maybe that doesn't.
We're just guessing.
We're guessing.
Yeah.
Like, you know, whether Monique does some research or whether we get the vendor in and they talk about what the portal does or, that might be another way to go.
Yeah, it seems like this really cool thing that we have to offer our residents. So
Right.
let's see what we can do.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I got excited about it.
And maybe, I know we participate in National Night Out, that could be a good opportunity to market getting more
Yeah, it's
people.
coming up. too.
Yeah.
Well, the first,
Yeah.
first
Like-
week of August.
Yeah, I'd like to take what's on the back of our bills and update it and have it be a link on our website, because I don't know, a lot of our customers get their utility bill electronically. They don't look at the back of the bill. So it's not really telling them anything. So I'd like to have it in a few places.
I was just gonna comment, I like the utility bill statistics. And the numbers in here, and I was wondering whether it's nine. Almost, don't show that.
I think it's low this particular period, but keep in mind, we shut off every 60 days. We also call customers before we shut them off.
Right,
And, you know, we post, of course, 2 days ahead of time, but we also call them. I think it's that morning before we actually go out to the mosque.
Got it. And I guess with the intent here that you're gonna add June and keep May next month, and we'll be adding them.
I can do that.
I mean, it's more a question, and I mean, I think it's interesting information to know how we're doing in terms of arrears and that kind of stuff.
All people that they usually come in and they.
A lot of people do. They usually pay over the phone or online
But they have to receive that phone call.
sometime.
Sometimes it's a visit.
He pays,
That's
double.
Or else. All right, any more questions for Monique? Very good, thank you, Monique. Juben.
Yes, not as exciting as a portal, but we'll keep going. So Harbor Boulevard, the update there is we have 400 feet in the ground out of the 2,100 linear feet for the total project as of today. So this report was prepared last week, so the construction actually started this week, last Friday, for digging. As I mentioned earlier, we ran into rock. So that was a surprise for everybody. It was
I didn't do it.
everybody. So the potholing, which is what we base it on, if we run into rock, or if we see rock on a hillside, or usually rocks are up on the hill. To be honest, we've never run into it down in here, but that's typically where we start factoring it into the specification and putting it into that paragraph that I was mentioning before for that bid item. So in this case, we're looking at production rate for the contractor. So pre-hitting rock, he was getting 200 linear feet a day. Today, he got 120 linear feet a day. So those are bases of negotiation that down the road, we start talking to the contractor and start negotiating their slowdown just for the portion that they run into rock. This is something that Director Vela asked before on the last project when we ran into rock, and he asked, why can't you just put into the bid item that rock's included, right? Rock is included. And the reason we can't do that is that you can't transfer risk to the contractor for an unknown. So this comes into play a lot of times with contaminated soil, saying all soils, contaminated or not. So you can say in your bid item that there is rock here, bid it as if there's rock. So the contractor will bid it that he's going to need a jackhammer for the duration of the project. Or we could say bid it with half of it as rock. But the truth, what that gets us is an elevated bid price, right? At that point, the contractor is bidding it with an elevated bid. And here there was no indication that there was going to be any rock, right? So we take that, we look at the profile and we put together the project based on that profile. So I wanted to kind of give you a background for how all this kind of comes together. So in this case, we are going to get a change order. We're going to do our best. We're going to negotiate it just like we did with the last project, and we're going to bring it to before. We're going to bring it to the board before the board with the proper name up top.
So my assumption would be that there cannot be that many areas with rock, because you have pothole and for some reason, you just missed that.
I hope so. I would agree with you.
Okay, would somebody know exactly, where the rock is? Our inspector should know that, hey, they found a boulder. Okay, so they got to the boulder and that's it, or it could be something else, maybe a long stretch,
So we have an inspector there.
Hastings, I would understand, that, it's a help, but here, it's an anomaly for them. So,
We hope it's an anomaly in an isolated area, but we have a full-time inspector on the job, Victor. And he's recording everything. He's recording the production rate, any additional equipment that they bring out to deal with the rock. So it's something we've dealt with in the past. So we'll work on it and we'll bring it back and we'll show you exactly how the change order was negotiated. But I just wanted to let you know the thought process and how the plans are put together, because I think that's really important to understand. So so that's Hastings is about 20% dug out, and I'm sorry, Harbor And the DLNO project, the one thing I wanted to report on that is we got our comments back from the city on that particular project. So it's about 95%. This is a time where we got comments back from the city. And then they again brought back a comment about their paving standards. And this is something that we've been dealing with the city a lot with. And, you know, they want us to pave a lot more than, you know, what we do in our little trench. And so that's something that interim general manager Rena is going to meet with the public works director on and remind them that we don't have to oblige by their standards. And that's an analysis that Julie did for us a year and a half ago. And so that's on that.
Point out to them that they don't follow their standards.
Right. But luckily, that's above my pay grade, so I'm just a dumb engineer. putting this thing together.
Like Kirk said that, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I was out there watching them put in a new sewer and they didn't do anything like that.
well, it's a lot easier to pass that along to enterprise funded agencies like us, right? So for us to take care of streets where our ratepayers are. And now they've added a certain rehabilitation of sidewalks and gutters on the Hastings project, on the service lines that we replaced. They were asking us now to replace sidewalk and gutters that we didn't even impact, even though,
Wow.
so it's getting a little,
Yeah, they wanted us to do like ADA ramps and stuff, it's like, what?
what, yeah.
What?
Yeah, that was,
That
it
was
was,
years ago.
yeah, so we keep pushing back, but we have to keep pushing back, because if we don't, our ratepayers end up paying for
Yeah.
street rehabilitation. So, on the pipe renewal analysis, I'm gonna,
Well, so this is the same city that built an ADA ramp in concrete to a dirt patch. Over in, going up Ralston.
right by the city hall, I think,
Yeah.
right, or?
It's nuts.
They'll probably
That's
have to fix
engineering.
that at some point.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, they'll
They'll
put it on.
build a sidewalk connect to the ADA ramp that they built.
We need to get that 2x2 schedule. You guys shouldn't have to waste all this extra time
But
and energy on stuff.
we
like
should
this.
have these, you know,
Yeah.
listed. Those would be good to bring them up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just a couple other things, the pipe renewal analysis, we're working together with Kat and myself, and so we should have that by September. I'm hoping maybe sooner than that, August. So that's analyzing our pipe in the ground, the age, and looking at our capital projects. It's something I brought up to the board about 3 months ago. So we'll update that. The last thing was our report card. And I wanted to just give a quick overview of how this was put together. So our firm was founded in 2004, myself and 3 others, and we're up to 13 people now. All of us worked at public agencies before we started the company in 2004. And we wanted to just have the same relationship that we had when we started our own company as we had working for much larger public agencies. And through the last 20 years, we've been fortunate. We're up to 13 people. We've had 3 people leave the firm in that 20 years. So just we stayed together. One of them was a retirement. So it's been a really cool family, and we love working here. We love working with our handful of clients. We don't have a ton of clients. I think 10 or 11 clients in total. And so we sat down with the general managers about 3 years ago with Tammy and Phil and Parissima, Daryl and Westboro and Rena at the time, and said, if someone came to you and said, how's your district engineer doing? What information do you need to let them know that either we're doing a good job or a bad job? And so the first thing they came up with was change orders or construction, right? That's the biggest ticket item. And that's something that you hear in the newspapers or, you know, social media, all these public works projects always going over budget, right, on change orders. So they said, provide an analysis of how well you're doing designing our capital projects. And so that's table 1 essentially. And what table 1 does is we go back to 2015 where we have really good data on projects. We became your district engineers in 2012. And from 2012 to 2015, we were doing basically putting together your capital program, and then we started constructing in 2015. And so there's 2 change order columns. One is that the change orders that the district initiates, you know, if we want to add to a project or So those are taken out, and then there's another column called non-owner initiated change orders. So that's everything else. We run into rock. We miss a sewer line. So even though rock isn't necessarily our fault, we stick it in there, right? And so all of that cumulatively is that first highlighted item number down there is 2.4% for all your projects over the last 8 years. And so how does that compare to industry average? So industry average for underground construction is about 10%. Right, and so our internal target that we try to target is about 5%. So we've been doing pretty good. We've been coming in under target. And there's at the bottom table, it shows the savings versus the targets. And so the last two projects, the Hastings Mine, Canyon, so that came up a little bit higher than average at 3.6, and all that was rock. So not that, but so, it goes up and down, right? And it's just based on, but overall, looking at that, the general managers felt, okay, this is good information. We could show that we're spending the money of our ratepayers wisely. So, but the second table, at the same time, is you could spend a ton of money on design, right? You can really gold plate your design to make sure you don't get that much change orders. So you have to look at these two tables evenly and see, okay, how are you doing on design? And are you spending a ton of money on design when we ask you to design something? So table 2 is showing you how much our fees are for design and construction support based on industry average. Again, just looking at the highlights on the bottom, the design target is about 15% plus or minus. And the target for construction management and support is about 8%. So there's numbers that are higher, there's numbers that are lower, but on average, we're about 13% for design and 7% for CM. So these two taken together, hopefully are showing the board, the public, the general managers that, things are okay. They're not horrible. And the one thing I want to show on this one is the bigger projects, when we lump a ton of stuff together, bring the numbers lower, right? The percentages, because there's a lot of upfront work that we do, no matter the size of the project. And so it really validates what we try to do internally, staff-wise, is lumping a bunch of smaller projects together and designing those together and then going out to bid. So that this kind of shows that makes sense. And then the last slide is, okay, that's great, but there's a lot of work that we do that's not a lot, actually a quarter of our work. So 75% is capital projects, big design work. A quarter of our billings to the districts on average is support services for various items, which are billed on a time and material basis. Those are the task orders that Rena brought to you earlier, for distribution system analysis, upkeeping your specs, those kind of things. How are your hourly rates when you bill us on those projects? And so this last table shows our billing rates versus anything that I can find, basically. So if there's others out there, I try to put them in there. These are the ones that I could find easily based, going and scouring meeting minutes and meeting, those kind of, so I put little notes on the bottom, where I got it from. But if there's others out there, please let me know and I'll throw it on here. So with these three are our general managers. When we meet with them quarterly, we set up a meeting with them and we meet quarterly. They felt they had enough information to feel comfortable saying, okay, you're doing a decent job, keep it up. And so what we felt was prudent was provide this to you every June. And so this is the second time I'm doing this, but the first time was on Zoom. So it wasn't, I like the eye contact. The first real. But if there's more information the board wants at table 4, table 5, I'm here.
This is good information.
I'm here to do that. So, but I want to give you, I'll end with this. I want to give you the opportunity to look at what you're spending on district engineering work, right? Because we do spend a lot of money on designing projects, on capital projects. And I want to make sure that you're comfortable with the work we're doing, and hopefully this provides information. And it's been an amazing opportunity to work for you and Rena and Kat and Monique these last 12 years. And we you know, we've had clients for 20+ years, you know, since the inception of the project, since the inception of our little firm. So we want to continue that. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Very good. Any questions? No? Good stuff. And yeah, this is very, very useful and at some point, these report, I mean, we spend the money as we go along and then sometimes we forget, like, how are we really doing? Where's that money? How is that money really spent? And we said this ad nauseum that, you know, we're dealing with money that's not even ours, you know, and here we are, you know, dishing it away. And it's good to know that you're giving it out wisely and you're spending the money that belongs to somebody else in a very responsible manner. So, all right, anything else? Good, Judah, thank you. Good work. All right. Mr. Allen,
Okay, I guess I'm on.
how are you? You're not
Thank
asleep?
you. Okay, before I get into the reports, I want to mention one change that wasn't made to the reports that will be done. So June will look a little different. Specifically on the capital budget, the San Francisco Peninsula Regional Pure Water Project. The work that was done there is board approved and budgeted and everything, no problem with what was done. But it was paid out of the COPS funds and posted to CIP. And in looking at it, it didn't appear to be a CIP. We're not actually building something that we will own. And I did run it by the proposed district treasurer, James Ramsey, with E. Bailey. And he agreed that it's an expense item. So that will be taken off the capital expenditures and put into the operating expenditures. This got resolved this week, so it was after the reports were done. It's no new spending, doesn't affect what's already happened. It's just a matter of properly accounting for it. So moving on with the regular reports. Unfortunately, the analysis of water commodity charges revenue does not look good in May. You can see it's about the largest gap in the year between the budgeted and the actual. So it's good to hear that the water usage is picking up. I'm all for conservation, but for fiscal people, you hate to see it because it hurts financially. But obviously it's a good thing to have happen. But as far as that goes, that's the biggest negative by far. At this point, I strongly doubt that the water commodity charges revenue will come in on budget. I think it's going to be a fairly significant deficit, probably about 300,000. The good news is all but a couple of very minor other revenue accounts are all over budget, some by fairly healthy amounts. And so I do expect the overall revenue to be pretty close to budget. And then the expenses and expenditures are, for the most part, under budget. So looks like there's still going to be a year-end surplus of $2 million, give or take, as far as that goes. So, obviously that's a good position to be in. So I could go over, the details, but I wanted to just hit the high points and answer any questions if there are any.
I think our customers forgot to turn on their irrigation system.
Yeah, I think so too, and it's finally this past month or May, it kind of started getting closer to where it was at the drought level in 2015. So yeah, I think we're gonna see an increase. And you remember we're talking about during the budget process, what did we use? What kind of recovery might we see? And we said it was maybe a couple of percentage points above, so.
So what do we, obviously, we cannot promote people to use more water because that's
Of course.
counterintuitive. But at some point, but we need to, reach a balance somewhere, we cannot, because the deficit of $100,000 is a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, that's where we'll have
It
to
is.
watch how we're spending money, we'll have to watch, how we're conducting business so that we're keeping a sharp pencil on how we're spending.
So
Yeah.
somebody needs to, sit down, knowing that that's where we're heading. We're heading to that deficit. So now, how do you project the expenditures so that you will meet that and not let the gap go too
Yeah.
much?
Well, as I was saying in the report, well, I've mentioned it before. The purchased water expenditure expense is about half of your water sales. Part of that is set because it's flat monthly fees, but the main part of it is how much water do you buy, directly translate into how much water you sell. So there's going to be a surplus there at the end of the year that's going to negate a large part of the deficit in the revenue. And then the other expense accounts, for the most part, with the one exception of administration and equipment, are running under budget and look like they'll be good at year end. The flood recovery may go over, but the good thing about the flood recovery, nothing's budgeted for any reimbursement from JPIA. So the expenses are there, but not the offsetting presumed insurance reimbursement down the road. That may take place next year, depending on how settled everything is. You accrue it if you have a good number to accrue. I don't know if we'll have a good number by that point, but the money will come in at some point.
Yeah, but regardless, personally, I wouldn't want to balance the budget that way, because now we know where we're heading, so the expenditure, cutting of the expenditure should start happening now without, hopefully damaging, our operation as much as possible. But I'm sure you guys can find many different ways how to do a little cutting. I mean, $300,000 is a lot of money, but in the whole scheme of things, it's not something that, oh my God, we can never reach that, it can't. So. That's what happened.
Two little comments. One, if you notice in the middle of the CCR, there was the term for that little piece of paper is overflowing. I learned that from John Davidson. But we did have that, which it didn't say, hey, go turn on and use all the water in the world, but it was kind of worded to let people know that we moved from stage 2 to stage 1 of the water storage agency plan, that our supply scenario has changed. And, thank people for the conservation, but also let them know that the supply scenario has changed. We're not pounding them over the head with conservation anymore. And the other is that if you recall, we are in the middle of a rate study. Our consultants at first actually, when they projected our future demand, they projected rather high. They didn't actually look at, even look at our urban water management plan projections. And so we've been working and we put it on hold for a while, but that was one of the first things I noticed, to really look at how should we be projecting our demand, taking into account drought, taking into account demand hardening, so that when we do bring those proposed rates to, we'll have thought that through and done. I actually built a model based on our billing data that I can manipulate and run different kind of demand scenarios to see what our impacts with the proposed rates are. So we're trying to really consider that if we do a rate change.
Supposed to get hot next month.
Yeah.
I actually was going to mention that tonight on the news, they said July is supposed to be much warmer than average. I don't know about, well, it's been cool when I was up there, but our June has been incredibly cool down here. But they said July is supposed to be a real hot month, so.
Yeah. July hasn't been that hot here. Couple of days here and there, or maybe like where I live, probably because when we come down here, It's warmer, it's about 10 degrees warmer.
It's way warmer down here than up there.
Yeah, it is. So, all right. Okay, anything else for Al? Al?
Before we move on, can I just say something? I don't know if everybody's aware, but this is Al's second to last month. And I just personally want to thank Al for all the work that he's done for us during the time that he's worked for us as the retired management. It's been really truly priceless and I appreciate it, Al.
Oh, thanks. Thanks very much.
Yes, thank you, Al. Go ahead.
Oh, you're welcome. I expect to be at the live at the next meeting, which presumably be my last one. I promised my wife it'd be my last trip up, so it'd be good to see you all one more time.
Yes, absolutely, it'll be a pleasure. Anything else, Al, from you?
Not unless there's any questions.
I guess there are none, so Al, thank you so very much, and we look forward to seeing you next month.
Very good. Thank you.
All right, in person.
Right.
Thank you so much. All right,
You're welcome.
all right. And Steve, we'll move on to director's report. To my right. Director Schmidt, anything?
Nothing major. I will just mention that I only recently learned that there are some European municipal water systems that do not disinfect their water. No chlorine, no chlorines. Yeah, but they don't rely on these residuals.
Right.
staying in the water.
Right.
So I thought that was really interesting, because when we empty a water system directly in creeks, that's a problem. They don't have that problem. So they don't use that. They actually do have chlorine and chloramine as a backup in case something's wrong, but they don't, some of these systems don't.
They don't introduce it to the water.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah, and then I started thinking, wonder if Lewis knows what Malta does. And then I was thinking, well, I'll just go look it up myself. And then I went down the rabbit hole of water in Malta, which is fascinating, actually.
Oh, yeah.
But
I've done that.
they actually do chlorinate.
Of course, well, it's all desal, reverse osmosis.
And illegal boreholes into the groundwater.
Absolutely, yeah.
Very huge caves where they store water. So.
That is so true. And I know about it, and I've been there, you know. I've been.
Sounds like a field trip.
Yeah, field trip. There you go.
All right, so
We
nothing
need to
else.
start working on that.
You got it.
So tell me about that. Which European municipality, you know?
Uh,
Switzerland or what, you know?
It seems like Central European and
Yeah,
Scandinavian.
absolutely, yeah.
So
Switzerland,
microfiltration plus UV
Yeah.
plus something else.
Plus better quality pipes, probably.
Probably so. The report that led me to this is when, also, the other thing I didn't know is we've got plenty of bacteria in our systems. They're in biofilms,
Mhm.
but they're not normally a problem. But if you don't put these, they found if you don't put chlorine or chloramines, there are predatory bacteria that start to kill the other bacteria. So they have a certain advantage. So that's all.
They do have, the countries that you mentioned, they do have much shorter summers, but
That's true. They'll be looking.
not like California. Anyways, okay, and not like Malta, one has a long summer, we're talking about the countries up north. All right, cool. And Matt, anything? Good? Mr. Jordan?
Yeah, I'll be brief since I have missed the last two meetings. I went to, back in April, the San Mateo County Chamber of Commerce, they put on a progress seminar every year.
Oh, yeah.
And it was the first time I went. It was in Santa Rosa. It's mostly electives and staff from San Mateo County, and I found it really informative. What I thought was really interesting is outside of the 7 Belmont people that were there, no one had any idea about the water district. No
And these
idea,
are elected officials?
yes.
Seriously?
So I think it's
Well, most of them don't know where Belmont is on a map.
Right there, alive, people
I'm
are
talking
what?
about people in San Carlos,
Right.
people in Redwood City.
I can't tell you how many times in the last 30 years, I live in Belmont. Where is that exactly? You know San Mateo, yeah, you know San Carlos, between the two.
Yeah.
And that explains it for them.
Yeah, I mean, I kept the brochure if anyone wants to take a look at some of the sessions, but I thought it was really informative. It was a really good networking event. I highly recommend that Ashen was there from the city of Belmont. It was the first time he attended. And I think he found it valuable, but it is a really good time to actually talk to some of the other electeds. I talked to our county supervisors about, the floods that we had and made sure they were both aware. They both were. But I would like to go again next year, and I highly recommend if we have a budget that, maybe a couple of us attend. I kept this for others, and it does sell out very quickly. So once the registration opens, we have to get registered. It was the first time I had gone to it as well. Because it was the first time I actually got in. Every time I found out, it was always sold out.
Cool, all right, Dr. Wheeler, anything?
Well, I went to the HIA meeting this month, and it's the last HIA meeting for the summer. But they ended up having a presentation dealing with the Belmont Creek drainage project. Like the thing. So no, there was no discussion of any high level flood control aspect to it. They really were concentrating on their off channel detention basin in Twin Pond that they're going to build. And what effect it would have, that it would decrease the low flows in Belmont Creek down to some extent. But in order to get 10-year level of capacity, they really need to move culvert down Harbor Boulevard and on under the freeway Sunday. So we're not going to see much improvement to our potential flood problem.
Burlingame solved that by building a 284 CFS pump station
Mhm,
that your firm designed,
mhm.
that I program managed.
And they pump into that
They pump into the,
Right.
on low tide.
high flow. It goes into this emergency, it overflows into this pump station, and then it pumps it, the force main under. Agree with it, built.
Wow. Right. All it takes is money and energy.
Yeah.
We can engineer.
That's all.
It was about $7 million to
That's
build it,
all.
yeah,
Yeah.
wow, and that was 10, 15 years ago.
And Belmont doesn't really consider it a big problem, so it's an issue.
Yeah, I attended that meeting as well, it was very interesting. And Pat gave a very good report to everybody there, or about district, Lennon was there too. And I also attended the Bosco Board Policy Committee, and we had a lot of comments from the Tuolumne River Trust people. A lot of comments. Usually we don't for the Board Policy Committee meeting, but this is just a select group, not the big group of Bosco. So, they're attending those meetings as well because they are public meetings. And we anticipate that in the July meeting, they'll be there again. Because now we're thinking all this snow melt and all this water, and now who's going to get what for the water? The River Trust people want as much water downstream as possible. Anyway, it's gonna be interesting. And that's it. We attended the agenda meeting, the VP and I. And that's it. Very much. All right, we'll go to communications for anything. Pat?
Do you want to bring up the SFQC oil water?
Oh, that we got today, yeah, I sent that to you all, we got an email that somebody had borrowed or stolen or whatever, an old template of the SFPUC, and they were saying that there was a boil water issue up and down the peninsula looked like, and they mentioned all the different agencies that had a boil water issue, including us. And the SFUC got on right away, and said, hey, look, you know, you folks, if you're hearing this, just know that's not true. You know, somebody's done this and they're trying to stir up the pot or whatever. There's no.
So they threw it, were on, like.
The social media, yeah, social media. I'm not sure if it was on Nextdoor or what, but it is, and it's just, you know, it's that kind of stuff. It's nowadays, yeah, we're gonna have to deal with that kind of stuff from now on.
If you ever hear or see anything like that, one telltale sign that was very, wrong, and it had the old SFUC logo, not the current logo, so.
Yeah,
And it's weird, must have been, a template that they had ready in case they needed to distribute it, but not even a message that had been distributed. But it listed all of the, San Mateo County agencies, basically,
yeah.
by name.
But if somebody wants to do harm, I mean, they could just as easily replace that logo with the new logo and just throw it out there, just to mess with everybody.
Yeah,
How sad. How sad. Okay, that's it as far as communication.
from staff.
That's it. Is that Anybody else, anything? Very good. Thank you. That will be it for this, and now we go to. closed session.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll have 3 minutes.
Good night, Al.
Good night, Al.
Good night, Michael.
Good night, Al. Oh, Michael.
Good night.
He joined a little bit ago.
Good night,
All
y'all.
right, good night, Michael.
Night all.
Good night, everyone. Here next week.
Okay, there. Yeah.
Resume recording. Okay, we're back.
It is
Is what,
9:45.
9:45, reconvene to open session, 9:45,
There's no reportable action.
okay.
So,
Meeting
meeting
adjourned.
adjourned.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.